that, but I often have an issue with just like what Nora was saying in regards to the amount of NGOs and the fact that you constantly conflict with one another. You just mentioned the Department of State and USAID clashing in their roles, and I happen to have worked teaching Portuguese in the Department of State, and most of our students were Department of State and USAID. And one thing that I realized is that, at least now, I don't know how it was before, but nowadays the employees are becoming younger and younger, extremely arrogant, lack of knowledge. And I often was concerned of what are these people going to do in Africa? You know, they don't have any knowledge of reality. They've been privileged all their lives. They are being pampered. At the Department of State is like the best welfare system in the world. And they don't know what it is to need things. They don't understand, they don't even understand democracy. Yeah, they've lived here. They don't really understand what it is. You know, and then you're going there to explain democracy, good governance. What do you know about it? You know, they don't know anything about those things. Then you have this amount of NGOs, and Nora said it, you all have the same objective, so why is it that there are so many? And why is it that we don't see any progress? And often I feel that the NGOs are actually undermining the work of governments. And it is not all governments in Africa that are bad. Some have actually tried to do, but you have so many things that are being imposed that the government is really, not even the government. The government, the way I see it nowadays, is World Bank, this enormous number of NGOs that go and impose your views. And we were often talking about modernity, but can we move on from having the people choose their own modernity and develop their own selves? Because we're not giving these people the opportunity to really advance themselves or to even have a dialogue. We're supposed to have a structure in the government where you have a micro, a meso, and a macro. And though the people do try to influence policy, the policies that we constantly see being applied are policies that do not take these people's needs into account. Water, for example. You know, they've been crying for that for ages, and there is nobody, this nonsense of drilling wells. 2012. Who needs a damn well? You know, women in Africa constantly having to carry water. Can you develop a system? With the millions of dollars we have in you cannot, with all the NGOs, instead of wasting money paying all these employees, they're not doing anything but to fly for free on other people's tax money. Use that money and just one NGO. Just combine your ideas. Stop this clash. No, I need to do. No, you need to do. No, I'm the one who's going to do. And then I'm going to do this project. And you undermine the projects that are being created in these countries, even the projects that are being created by their own people.
Okay.
And then
Keith and
I think the one big word we haven't heard yet is corruption. And I spell corruption with a K. Dr. Nyang and I were having a conversation about water some time ago. And he said to me, and I had to think about it because it caught me off guard. He said, Keith, you know, you could sell these in Africa and make a lot of money because there's no water. There's this dearth of water. It's a serious problem. And I thought about that. It took me maybe a week to figure out that there's not one border that I could take one truck full of water to and not have to pay a bribe and not have to grease the wheels of corruption. And this is so embedded, ingrained in every little local village, from the so-called chiefs straight through the police and everybody else. It's a horror in and of itself. So that's why there's no wells. That's the problem now. Is the solution, and it took me a long time to come around to Dr. Hailu's thinking about the Chinese, because my history is, I like this young man here, but much earlier than he, I was in the Army. And so in my generation, we didn't care too much for the Chinese. I grew up in places like Virginia where Douglas MacArthur is a hero for standing up to Truman and wanting to nuke the Chinese back in the 50s. And of course, that's now passé. But is China going to help in its involvement in Africa to eradicate this corruption that I'm talking about? I don't know. It's probable that it's not, but at the same time, like what Nora said, there's so many replications upon replications upon replications that maybe what the Chinese are doing might breathe some sort of fresh air into this whole drama. It has yet to be seen.
So I have a specific question, but also just as a general thought, I think that there's really interesting ideas and, you know, comments going through the room, but I think it's important to keep in mind when we're talking about these kind of things in considering and in deconstructing these issues and asking why do NGOs not coordinate, whatever. It's really complex, and we can't just look at that issue. We need to look at the global, first of all, a globalized world and the interconnections between government, politics, trade organization, trade law, and it's really hard to just stop here and place the blame on this or say, you know, this is the issue. It's really complex. And with that being said, I think it's fascinating. I had no idea actually about the Navy Civil Affairs as an organization or a section of the Navy, and that it's fairly new. You said 2005, and so I guess it what I can see it as is a U.S. a very obvious way that the U.S. is militarizing development, and I mean that can be scary if you're looking at it from the development side, but it can also maybe be positive in a way, or encouraging if you're looking at it from, you know, strictly military intervention sides where the way that it's been done before has been through just force or unilateral action. So my question is, you know, given obviously that this, you know, even USAID, State Department, all U.S. interactions, or really any interaction that any organization would do, in the end is also with its own interests as the motivating factor. So with that, I wonder how are the individuals in the civil affairs, how are they selected? Are they selected? Is there a process? Do they volunteer? Or is it broader where everyone in a certain Navy, like if you're gone here, is it random? How does it happen? Are there criteria that they look for?
Prior service.
All right, I wonder how to answer this. I'll answer this as a private person making the observation rather than anything official. The Navy, because it's still a young operation, the Navy Civil Affairs Command relies pretty much on randomness. Individuals coming from different areas of the Navy. Some may be pilots, some may be boat drivers, some may be submariners, and they hear about from their detailer, here's an opportunity, and they don't really know what civil affairs is. They know it's an opportunity to be on the shore rather than deployed on a ship. There's a particular interest in many of them selecting that so that they can be with family. So we somewhat jokingly say we're dealing with the land of the lost. We have the land of misfit toys because everyone doesn't come with the same mind. Everyone doesn't come with the same set of skills. They run the gamut, which makes establishing a civil affairs culture within the Navy all the more difficult to do. On the Army side, because Army has maintained civil affairs capability for so much longer, there is, in effect, a career track within the Army structure so that people who choose to be in civil affairs for the Army may spend a good portion of their careers getting credit for the time spent and being able to retire having been a civil affairs person. That's not the case with the Navy. The people who come into Navy Civil Affairs do not get official credit for the time spent learning about and engaging in civil affairs activities. They have to leave the command after their 2 to 3 year rotation and go back into their rate, their rank structure, in order to build and climb for a viable retirement. It's a problem.
Yeah. Let's hear the final thoughts from the others also, and then we'll have Dr. Liang give the final,
Not really any final thoughts, but just thank everybody for their comments and things like that. And we will be speaking at the, I don't wanna mess it up, the Office of African Affairs, yeah. On April 21st, from Mayor Gray's office, we'll be speaking on a panel.
Well, I feel there is a need for NGOs in Africa, everything put together. I think we need to be more proactive in terms of gaining knowledge, understanding of what the needs are, and I think we need to be able to coordinate and decipher more of what we accept and what we reject to move forward.
The last point I would say really is that when Nora told you the number of NGOs you have in Tanzania, and I would suggest to all of you to really to do a quick exercise. NGOs, you can start from Mauritania, Senegal, all the way down to Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Sierra Leone, all the way to Cote d'Ivoire, and you go to South Africa, and look at the total number of NGOs in Africa. Now, there is an international federation of NGOs, it's called FAO, Federation of African Voluntary Organization. That's the continental organization of NGOs. FAO, just Google it. Federation of African Voluntary Organization. You can see the English influence for that. One time, over here in the African studies, I was called by Jennifer Douglas, she's African American. She worked with the African Development Foundation. And the African Development Foundation was hosting this Senegalese who was the head of that FAO. So it's a federation of all the NGOs. Now you can imagine, like not all of them will be able to attend an OAU kind of meeting. So this is why they will have to work out. You see, and Addis Ababa, like you only have 200 NGOs from the Gambia, but not all of them will be represented. The same thing with Sierra Leone. What has to happen, this is why the diaspora people have to go to work. There are Americans now, people like Melfoot, Trans-Africa, these names. They are very actively involved in building bridges between the African diaspora here, meaning African Americans, and Afro-Caribbean, and now you have the new African. Ali was really called us who are here, American Africans. That's what they debated. Some of us challenged that issue. Like just in the black human beings in America here. But you see, that's where the NGOs have a big role now. The young people now, you see, they live here. So I think they should encourage them. All of you now who are graduate students or undergraduate should take the initiative. Try to tap her knowledge. Don't throw that knowledge you have from Nigeria. Write an article so people understand what you went through. And it becomes a package. If you can get someone to take the initiative, you can collect all this and have a whole book of your own. You preserve that knowledge so that what you learn from that experience is collected. You see, I saw one African-American lady recently. If you read the retirement magazine that comes out, you can get it from any of these grocery stores. She collected all the African-Americans who lived to be 70, their stories. That's what you have to do. Tell me, you're educated. Collect all the Nigerians you know to write their story. So you have a book that will be preserved. The NGO, the young ones can benefit from that. And the young ladies here, they can benefit from that. Because then they can develop networking through Facebook and everything else. Technology must be used to do this. That's all we can do as teachers to you. Thank you very much, Dr. Allen, and all of you.
I also want to express my gratitude again for all the guest panelists, presenters, Ms. Agnes, Dr. Niang, and all of you here who took this time, Friday evening, you have better time to do. Coming here and being part of this, the lesson we draw from this is that NGO is the most powerful force now, not just in Africa but the world. And it's incumbent on us to be engaged in research, in scholarship, in activism, in reworking the institutions, So, like that cliche, what's that mantra they have? Don't curse the darkness. What do they say? Light a candle. Don't curse darkness. Put a candle. So it's for us to be part of the process in your theses, in your research, in your papers, in discussions like this. Again, thanks to them and thanks to everybody, and we will hope to do something like this in the future. Thanks again.
You have a comment?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone. It was very informative. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot.
You got my face?
Huh? Do you have a comment, Mr. Okoro?
I think it was a very important session and I really enjoyed listening in. I don't take this class, but I think I learned a lot. Thank you for inviting me.
Do you have a comment about the session?
Yeah, it's very nice. I learned a lot from the practical world. So it's very interesting to me.
Excuse me, ma'am. What is your name?
Noemi Highland.
Noemi, do you have a comment? What do you think about the session?
I think it was great. I hope that, I wish you could do it again next week.
Keith, what do you think about the session?
Very informative, very helpful, somewhat illuminating, not long enough. Probably going to feel a brain